I'm Tomáš Sušánka. I'm the CTO of Trezor. Trezor is a company dedicating for Bitcoin hardware wallets. And I will just dive right into it. Just a quick one more thing. Trezor is a company from holding Satoshi Labs. Satoshi Labs is actually three companies: Trezor, which we're going to talk about, then Inviti, which is a Bitcoin onboarding company, and a Tropic Square, who is dedicated to make an open source secure element chip. Now, okay, so first I would like to tell you what Bitcoin actually is, and I have like 5 minutes, so it's basically impossible, but I will try. So this is not what Bitcoin looks like. Obviously, it's something that is digital, so it's very hard, to illustrate it somehow or to give you an idea what it actually is. But what is important is that when somebody mentions that they own a Bitcoin or they own cryptocurrencies, what they are actually owning is the private keys. So the very fundament of every cryptocurrency is that you have a private and public key pairs, and you use those keys, like it's cryptographic keys. You use those keys and you spend the cryptocurrencies. So, when you read the horror stories, like someone lost thousands of Bitcoins, they haven't really, lost the Bitcoins. They have lost the private keys that are related to the addresses. I understand that's like very, very quick, but it's like important to have an idea of what the people are actually owning. That's basically why there is some kind of motto in our world that's not your keys, not your coins. So if you do not own the particular keys, if you do not own the private key or the private keys in general, you do not actually own the coins. A good example of that is that, for example, if you buy Bitcoin on an exchange, the exchange, is claiming, okay, you have 2 Bitcoins, but they still have that in some sort of database of theirs, and you do not have access to that keys, to the private keys. So these are so-called paper wallets. So that's something. For example, if you buy Bitcoin from an ATM, this is what you get. You get just a piece of paper, and that's it. If you lose that, it's your problem. But it's like game over. If you lose that, you cannot spend the private keys. The other option, so that's like the very most basic one, okay? That's just like the very 101, Bitcoin 101. You just get a paper, you have a private and public key pair, and that's it. Of course, the more sophisticated solutions are just use your phone or your laptop, whatever suits you better. Of course, there are a lot of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency wallets out there. You install an app, you can store the crypto there, and it works good enough. The problem is that, your phone or your laptop is a general purpose device, right? I mean, you use your laptop for watching Netflix, for browsing, for Showmax, I meant, apologies. Or we have both, actually, no? Okay, never mind. And you use, those devices on a daily basis. That works fine, until the moment that you have some malware, some virus, or you have some other problem, or you lose the device and so on. So that's why we came up with the concept called hardware devices, hardware crypto wallets. We were actually one of the first in the market. I think it's like 8 years from the concept idea. And there are some other players like around these days, but we are still, of course, one of the main ones. The idea of Trezor, or the hardware wallets in general, is that it's a single purpose device. That means it does only one thing, and that's cryptocurrencies, and it doesn't do anything else. So it stores the private keys that we've already mentioned, and it doesn't do anything else. And you need to confirm each and every transaction on the device using its touchscreen or buttons. So that's like an important aspect. Once you unplug it from the USB, it's offline. You can bury it in your ground or like in your garden or whatever, and it stays offline. And as you know, what is offline I don't want to say it's unhackable, but obviously, the attack vendor is way, way smaller. So just a quick intro here into the world of the backup. I've mentioned that if you lose the paper wallet, that it's your loss. And I guess you may say, okay, but it's the same for Trezor. If you lose Trezor, like then what? It's the same thing. But Trezors, or actually hardware wallets in general, have this concept, this standard that is called BIP39. And this standard actually tells you to write down these English words. It's a standard that actually we've invented, or our co-founders invented, but it's now a standard in the Bitcoin world. It's used by our competitors, also by the mobile wallets and so on. So you write down these words, and then each and every address and private keys the Trezor generates, they are deterministically available through those words. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but what is important is that you using deterministic algorithm, you can get those private keys from those English words. It's just a bunch of hashes, and at the end you have the private keys. So in case you lose Trezor, you just buy a new one, and you just enter the words. And as I've mentioned, it doesn't have to be from us. So if our company dies tomorrow, there are still a bunch of other options where you can import those words. Just a quick recap. So these are the two devices that we are currently manufacturing, and we of course have a accompanying software that we develop. That's Trezor Suite, and Trezor Suite is it's the place where you start when you need to work with Trezor. So you plug the USB in, you connect to a Trezor Suite, and you can send transactions, receive transactions, and so on and so on. But again, it's not the only thing that Trezor works with. You can also use Electrum, a community project, or a bunch of others. Yeah. So 110 Bitcoins, that's kind of nice. It's a mock-up, unfortunately. Oh yeah, just to very briefly recap through our technologies, but I will skim them really quickly. Firmware, we have firmware written C at the very low level. Like the hardware stuff, Rust in between, and MicroPython. So the application layer is written in Python. Trezor Suite, which are you probably most interested in, is TypeScript and React. And then we have two things written in Go, which we consider sort of a backend. And it's like when we use the term backends, you usually see a database and some backend stuff, and like something that runs on the server. We do not really have backends in that sense, because like our app Trezor Suite is to some extent stateless. So we don't really remember anything. But once you plug the Trezor in, it loads up everything from the scratch. So this way we do not store any data, because we don't want to know. We don't want to know how many Bitcoins you have, and we don't need to know, because that's the point of Bitcoin. So Trezor Bridge is something I will talk about a little bit more, and Blockbook is just let's say a layer between the cryptocurrency itself and Trezor Suite, and it does some optimization, caching, and so on. One last slide is about like development of these devices. It would be like super annoying, to develop, to write some code in Rust or MicroPython and then load it into the device directly. That would be like very not flexible at all. So we actually have two build targets. One of the is the device itself. One of them is Unix. So on Linux and Mac, you can run the emulator. This is an emulator that runs in your computer, and it communicates with Trezor Read as well. So that's how to develop stuff very quickly. Yeah. So now I would like to go a little bit more into the details about the device communication, because I figured that's what might interest the front-end group. I will go also through the history, because I think it helps, to give you a little bit of context. So at first, in the very beginnings, and this was before my time, so I obviously do not know that much about that, but was a binary plugin into a browser. That's something that browsers allowed at that time. And if you remember Flash and the annoying Java applets that didn't work, so that was us at that time. Yeah, so it didn't really work. It was unstable. It was really pain. Yeah, so then we had something that we called Trezor Chrome extension. So you probably know that Chrome has extensions. So that's those pieces of software that you can install in the browser directly. They actually have extensions and Chrome apps. I don't know if you know what the difference is, because I personally don't know really. So you can elaborate more on that later. I would like to know. But one of the main difference was that the Chrome apps at that time were providing some additional APIs that the extensions were not. So they actually had an option to communicate via USB, and that was exactly what we were aiming for. So that's why we developed, or actually someone from the community contributed contributed this, and it was able to communicate with the devices. So cool enough. Extremely confusingly, we called it Trezor Chrome extension, but it was a Chrome app, so it was not an extension. It was just, yeah, who knows why. And then the last thing that we have here already is a Trezor bridge. So bridge is a concept that we came up with, and we are still using it today. And it's very basic piece of software that has that exposes HTTP server on one side and is communicating via USB on the other one. So it has libUSB inside, and it communicates with Trezors. So we actually wrote it first in C, then we rewrote it in Go. That's probably not important, but this works just fine. But there is one significant confusion, and that's like user confusion. And that's before Trezor Suite, we actually had just a web wallet. So you could access your coins. It was a website, so wallet.trezor.io. And you either had to use Chrome, I will get into the later, or you had to have Bridge installed. And it was really confusing to the users because you install something and it was just a daemon, so it ran in background. You didn't launch it because it was a daemon. You didn't really touch it. You couldn't do anything about that. And it was somewhat confusing to most of the users. Yeah, so these days we are actually bundling it inside Trezor Suite. So you have like one comprehensive solution. Trezor Suite is, as mentioned, written in TypeScript and React, and is bundled inside Electron. So we can add Bridge directly there, and it is very self-contained. So when you launch Trezor Suite, you launch also Bridge, and it is it's more comprehensible to all the users. So yeah, so Trezor Bridge works just fine, with the exception of the user confusion. And then there is the second main option is web USB. So as I've mentioned, the Chrome extension or the Chrome app, it actually laid the foundation to an API called web USB. That's a project from Google and Chrome, which allows you to use USB devices directly from the browsers. So how it works, that it shows you this small piece of a dialog. This is not controlled by developers. This is a Chrome thing that shows this dialog, and the users can select the device, and then the browser can communicate with that. It works okay. It's not super exciting, but I mean, it's exciting because you can communicate with USB from the browser, so that's pretty cool. But it has two main problems. It is not under your control. So it happened to us twice that Chrome killed it remotely, because I guess they can, for a week. And we were like, yeah, I guess wait. We don't know what to do about that, because you cannot knock on Google doors, or at least we can't. So that kind of sucks, and you cannot really control it. And the other thing is that it's available only for Chrome. And this year, Edge, Microsoft Edge, introduced it, and Opera can also do it. It has no support in Firefox and Safari. Firefox like even said we are not doing that. We probably like due to security reasons. So that's not ideal because Safari and Firefox still has some coverage. So for those users, they need to use the desktop app. So yeah, so that's basically the end of our road. We basically what we are pushing most these days is Trezor Suite and Trezor Bridge bundled inside because that just works out of the box. You don't really have to do anything. It works fine. The question is whether it makes sense to have a TypeScript project and have a Go binary just like bundled inside. It makes more sense to have it natively, and there is actually a USB library for Node.js as well, or for JavaScript. So we could have it actually natively, and I think that's the place we are aiming for in some future. Okay, so now it's the end. Thank you everyone. I hoped it was not too generic. I understand it was not that front end related, but I figured it's better to give you like a general introduction than jump directly into some crazy concept in the cryptocurrency world. So I hope that's okay. Thank you.
This was Tomáš Sušánka, CTO from Trezor Satoshi Labs, and now it's time for your questions.
In terms of front-end interaction, what do you think is Trezor's most difficult user experience interaction? And how is it that you guys either simplify it or solve that for the customer? Because cryptocurrency is very confusing for sure.
So I could probably make a list of those because like the education in general is very hard because you have to, it's a completely new world. So you have to spend some time on it. In general, what we're having problems is, though I'm not sure how front-end related that is. As I've mentioned, the backups that you have, the English words that you write down. What we are struggling a lot is phishing, of course, because there are a lot of fake websites that tell you, hey, something went wrong, please enter your English words here. And as I've mentioned, as it's deterministically derived, at the point when you enter those words somewhere you are not supposed to, it's game over because they will steal all your funds. So that's probably the main thing. And then like in general, like how to explain, not just that, but all the topics in general is something we're like, it's our daily, it's something that we are trying to simplify in general. I don't think I can point out some single thing, but I will think about it.
So maybe I overheard it, but if you lose that paper with the words, what happens? Is there any backup of the backup? Or also is it game over?
It's basically game over because, as as the saying says, with some freedom there comes some responsibility. Okay. So it's not a bank where you can just complain that you lost your fund. Well, you probably can do that even in normal banks, but you get the idea. What we actually have are like other concepts. We have an advanced backup that is called Shamir backup, because it's based on Shamir's secret sharing. And the idea of that is that you do not have one set of these words, you have more set of the words, and you can set it up as you want. So you can have threshold 3, number of shares 5, and then you need 3 of those 5 shares. Okay. So if you lose 1, then you still are able to get, you just need those 3. So that's how that helps the problem a little bit, because then you can lose, 1 or 2, depends on your setup.